Listener supported. WNYC Studios.
It's all of it on WNYC. I'm Carrie Nolan. Gooey butter cookies topped with sweet cream. Pumpkin dolce bars blending cinnamon and caramel. Apple cider donut snaps coated in white chocolate. From Christina Tosi, the founder of the iconic Milk Bar Bakery, comes a new cookbook all about cookies. Christina's book brings those and many more classic Milk Bar flavors into your kitchen and provides an awful lot of creative inspiration. And we want to hear from you as we talk with Christina. What are your cookie and dessert questions? Do your cookies always spread? Do they always come out too thick? Maybe you're looking to create the perfect holiday cookie gift basket. Give us a call, 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. Well, and Christina first fell in love with baking through cookies, and she's returning to her roots with this cookbook. She writes, quote, "For those of you who think a cookie is just a cookie and all cookie cookbooks are the same, welcome, my friend, to our crazy, amazing love affair with the most unsung hero of pastry. Two-time James Beard Award winner, founder of the Milk Bar Bakery, the mind behind the Naked Cake, and the author of All About Cookies, Christina Tosi joins us now. Christina, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. You have had an amazing career. The James Beard Awards, you creating the Milk Bar, essentially redefining the way people do dessert. So
Eat dessert, make dessert, dream about dessert, all of it.
So let's go back to the beginning. How have cookies shaped this baking journey?
You know, cookies were my way into the kitchen. I was raised, or maybe most highly influenced by the matriarchs of my life. So my grandmas, my mom, my aunts, and they, of all the differences, the thing they had in common was that they loved to bake, and moreover, they loved to bake cookies. And so I was one of the youngest in the family of kids and cousins. And, you know, it just becomes, you know, time in the kitchen just kind of became daycare and upbringing. And I quickly fell in love with the measuring, the making a little bit of a mess. I very much fell in love with the stealing a little pinch of cookie dough after licking the bowl and understanding what that magic was. And then the feeling of creation and accomplishment when you pull those cookies out, when you put them in like little plastic baggies or stack them on a to-go plate and you share them with people.
I remember seeing the episode of, I think it was A Chef's Table, that featured you, and those stories that you tell, they're so informative to almost everybody who's ever sat in a kitchen with grandma or mom or an aunt and made these things that just, these dishes that just stick with you for your whole life.
Yeah, the family recipes. I mean, I think a lot about food basically all the time. Thank goodness it's the chosen profession. But food has such a way of moving people, but these family recipes, right? The recipes that you give no credit to usually, like on your way up in life, they inform your taste buds. They inform your sense of nostalgia, your sense of self, your sense of belonging. They're the things that transport you later on in life when you haven't gone back to that place or that moment or that, you know, that flavor. My grandma made oatmeal cookies that she would roll in confectioner sugar before she baked them. That recipe's in a different Milk Bar cookbook, but these recipes, they're what feed us and fuel us literally and figuratively. And I love going back to those places. And then moreover, I love taking those as jumping off points, as inspiration to breathe new life and creativity into them with a solid point of inspiration. That's what we do at Milk Bar, is thinking about I call it the flavor story. What's the point of inspiration? Mm-hmm. And then how do we make it ours?
When did you decide that you wanted to leave fine dining and expand your baking horizons? How did that come about?
Are you ready for this, Carrie? So we are speaking today. It is the 14th birthday of Milk Bar. So November 15th, 2008, the economy was, in that really scary, recessed place, was the day that I opened the doors of Milk Bar. Now I knew I had this idea for Milk Bar after making my way up in fine dining and realizing that I was this formally trained pastry chef, and I love the skill and the artisanship of being a true pastry chef, but I was missing these moments, like these very, very humble, democratized, nostalgic moments of dessert. And I just thought to myself, there's got to be a bridge for the two. Like, it can't just be you either get a plate of baked goods from your grandma's kitchen, or you're like beautiful, beautiful, fine dining, high-end dessert. Like, there's got to be something in between. I looked around, I couldn't find it back then, and so I decided to build it, which is why Milk Bar exists. It's its reason for being.
Our guest is Christina Tosi. She is the founder of Milk Bar Bakery here in New York City. There are more than one of them, aren't there?
There are 12. New York City, DC, Boston, LA, Vegas, and a few more on the way. And we also will show up on your doorstep, because my other point of nostalgia is, have you ever received a care package with a baked good from someone you know and love? We built a whole, shipping direct to consumer business, because you can't get to those, you can't get to those bakeries sometimes, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to get a cornflake chocolate chip marshmallow cookie or some cereal milk ice cream.
We are going to talk cookies much more specifically, but I also want to open the phones up for listeners who have questions about maybe why their cookies aren't coming out as well as they would want them to. If you have any questions for Christina Tosi, give me a call, 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. You can also tweet your questions to at all of it WNYC. Christina, Milk Bar's desserts are centered around those classic ideas, kind of elevated and expanded, and they also have kind of a sly sense of humor about them. A cake but soaked in cereal milk, or a cookie with a Ritz cracker encased in a grapefruit white chocolate shell. It's crazy making. So
we're walking contradictions as people, right? If you think about the way, if we are irreverent and we sort of like take away the rules that we confine ourselves to, and we just think about what we think would be delightful and delicious with a rule-breaking mentality. I mean, think about it. Dessert's an opt-in course, right? Like, it's not a mandatory course. We are opting in.
Right.
And if you really think about opting in, whether you're cooking, baking, imagining at home, or whether you're visiting us or grabbing something we make in the aisles of the grocery store, like, I want you to do it with reckless abandon, because I just think that's how life is meant to be lived. And we're walking contradictions. And I just love the high-low tension. I mean, my pastry profession, right, is high-low, high-end pastry chef. I'm a baker at heart. Like, that's what I go back to. But salty sweet, that's a tension. Chocolate vanilla, that's a tension. I think playing on those tensions is really important. And I think having a sense of humor about it, a sense of adventure, is just so, so, so imperative.
What's so appealing to you, other than the tension part of it, about using that kind of salty sweet balance?
Well, personally, I'm the kind of person that, I'll eat a handful of gummy bears and then be like, ooh, I need a potato chip to balance it out, right? Like, for me, it's a little bit of a selfish pursuit of, because you can eat one more cookie. If you're eating the pretzel chocolate chunk cookie, you kind of have the salty and the sweet together. Not everything has to be salty and sweet, but right. It's that balance. I mean, technically, as a baker, a little bit of salt in a recipe helps contextualize the other flavors. Most people don't think about a cookie as having acidity, but every cookie has baking powder or baking soda in it for spread, for color, for flavor. But the flavor part is key. It brings an acidity to the cookie that we don't think about. The cheesecake cookie, we don't think about cheesecake as a dessert as having a saltiness or an acidity, but it exists, and they're really important pieces of making sure the flavor of your dessert isn't just sweet for sweet's sake, but that there's an emotion and a distinct flavor profile behind it. And it's a supporting cast of characters, of ingredients that help do that. And salt is one of them.
Let's take a call. Eric in Manhattan, you're on the air with all of it.
Hello. I do a lot of home baking, and I just wanted to make a couple of suggestions to everybody. One is that when a recipe calls for ginger, I always use freshly peeled and grated ginger. It's more work, but it makes such a difference, and it's so much better than the usual powdered kind. I also want to say that whenever a recipe calls for pumpkin, I go ahead and use canned pumpkin. Nobody can tell the difference. It's much easier and faster to use. And it really makes life easier. You also won't stink up your kitchen with baking a pumpkin, which I think smells awful. I love to eat it in desserts, but I think it smells awful when it's baking.
Thanks for your call, Eric. Christina, let's get a little recipe specific if we could. I almost made this from the book. I made something else, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Cereal milk cream soda cookies. It sounds like an ice cream float.
100. That's basically what it is. It's like I love the tension. I love playing the what if game, right? The what if my ice cream tasted like what's left in my bowl after I eat all the cereal out of it? Or rather, what if my ice cream float became a cookie? One, I start with, is that possible? And that's a lot of we call it R&D, the research and development of like, is it possible? Just because it's a good idea doesn't mean that it's possible and that the flavor story, the intent, the emotion travels through. But in the cereal milk cream soda cookie, it is true. And you learn a lot along the way in terms of like the tenets of the flavor of cereal and cereal milk, how to transform it from like a liquid frozen state into a nice gooey, dense, buttery, magical cookie moment, and the tenets of cream soda. But I think those for me are like, I like playing the like sort of trading places game of what if a corn cookie that we make at Milk Bar, which is dense and fudgy and delightful and buttered, what if it became a super snappy, crunchy cookie? For me, that's where my imagination goes to play.
You make a case in the book for bars.
Yes.
What's so great about them?
Well, first of all, for me, this cookbook is about, we know a dense and fudgy cookie. That's probably where most of us go to play. That or crunchies. But there's a wild, wonderful world of cookies beyond those, from what I call no bakes and low bakes to sandies and shorties and sammies. But bar cookies for me, Carrie, are something a lot of us bakers that are perhaps a little bit less inclined or less courageous in the kitchen because we just haven't built up our confidence yet. Mm-hmm. A bar cookie is, I think, one of the most delightful places to go and play because you don't have to scoop. It's not about the spread of the cookie or the raise of a cookie. You can put your cookie dough or your cookie batter into an 8x8 or a 9x13 pan. But what I also love about a bar is you can play with texture. So something that maybe is a pie put into a square or rectangular pan and cut into squares becomes pie with the form of a cookie or through the lens of a cookie. And the pumpkin dulce bars that you mentioned are like just absolutely perfect for this holiday season. They're based off of a pumpkin coffee cake that we're selling at the bakery and online right now. And bars, they're just the easiest thing of all the cookies to transport as well. They're easy to bake because it's sort of a one-stop, one vehicle into the oven vessel. And then they're so easy to carry to transport, whether they're like frozen ice cream bars or it's something that you bring warm to the holiday table next Thursday. I can't believe that Thanksgiving is almost here. But the bar for me, I actually think is probably the most humble of cookies because we don't give it any credit. It's a bar. Like, what is it? It has no categorization, but I think it's a cookie and I love a great square or rectangular bar cookie.
We're going to talk a little more about bar cookies, including the evolution of the Milk Bar pie into a bar. And we also want to take your call. So give us a call if you have a question for Christina Tosi. 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. We're going to take a quick break. This is all of it. Stay with us. This is all of it on WNYC. I'm Carrie Nolan, and my guest this hour is Christina Tosi. She is the founder of the Milk Bar Bakery, and she has a brand new cookbook out called All About Cookies, and we would love to hear from you. Our number is 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. Christina, the Milk Bar pie is a classic at this point. And you turn it into a bar. And I made these bars yesterday to bring in today. And I got to say, everybody, in fact, one of my colleagues says, do you want me just to record myself making noises so that we can play it during the show? And I thanked him.
Success, Carrie.
Pardon?
They were a success.
They were, yes, they were buttery and sweet and with that lovely bottom crust crunch. It was, I followed it to the letter, and it came out beautifully.
Brilliant. So this is like my whole case for bar cookies, because we serve milk bar pie at the milk bars. You can buy it online. You can even buy it in ice cream form at the grocery. But a lot of people, when we hear the word pie, we get nervous. It feels like a pie, I think by comparison to a cookie, feels like a fan in the kitchen. There's more places to either succeed or quote unquote fail when we're baking. And when you put something into a bar cookie form, it's this really almost savory oat cookie crust that you press down. And then this mixture that is inspired in part by like the Southern chess pie and inspired in part by the St. Louis gooey butter cake, both of which were like hallmark desserts of my childhood. And it's just this delightful mixture of butter and sugar and light brown sugar and a little bit of vanilla, some egg yolks, some heavy cream. The secret weapon, of course, a little corn powder, freeze-dried corn ground down, just for a little bit of an edge. But what I love about baking is giving people permission to be a little indulgent or a lot of indulgent, to be unapologetic in their goo factor. And that's what these milk bar pie bars are. They're a bar cookie, so they feel very humble when you bake them, but man, do they really pack a punch. And I think the thing about them is they are the tension of almost savory, oaty, and then sweet, and then more than anything, baked on the bottom, baked on the top, and then just this beautiful little line in the center of goo.
Right.
Which does something to us, right? Like it speaks to our souls. It makes us feel something. And I just love that. It sort of like puts us into that mindset of like, what if, or like, should I be a little naughty today? And I think that's the sense of humor of baking that I just love.
We have a question from a Twitter user who wants to know, has actually two questions. First one is, how do you get thick, rich, chewy chocolate chip cookies?
Ooh, okay, here's the move. There is, hilariously enough, in All About Cookies, because we have a few cookbooks, but there's not a chocolate chip cookie recipe in All About Cookies, because you already have your go-to chocolate chip cookie recipe. There is a recipe for chipless wonders, which is a little bit of like if you know, you know. But so two pieces. That makes a great chocolate chip cookie. But the two bits of advice that I'd give there is 1 to 2 tablespoons of non-fat milk powder will give you a very rich, very chewy cookie. And then if you want to go like super duper baking secret for the ultimate chewy cookie, there's a pastry product called fouilletine. It's basically super, super, super thin caramelized crepes that get broken down into little shards that hydrate very quickly when you put them in the oven. We typically will toss them with like hazelnut paste or nut butter so that you get a really nice like hard crack, but fold it into a chocolate chip cookie dough. Again, 2 tablespoons of fouilletine if you want to really take it to the next chewy level. Does magic, but 2 tablespoons of non-fat milk powder will do every single thing you could ever want. And then I would say softened butter. Melted to softened butter will give you a softer, chewier cookie, where cold butter out of the fridge will give you a flakier chocolate chip cookie, something that's a little taller, almost the way that a pie crust breaks apart, but in chocolate chip cookie land.
How do you spell fouilletine?
Let's see, Feulliitine.
Thank you. We actually had a couple of questions on that.
It's a funny little product.
Now, going back to the chocolate chip cookie, just very quickly, if you were going to use the non-fat dry milk, do you use that do you pull out 2 tablespoons?
No, it will not hydrate the way that, like, if you added 2 tablespoons of flour to your standard chocolate chip cookie, what
right.
you'd get are cookies that spread less, that are a little bit more big, tall, bready. But the non-fat milk powder, it won't hydrate in the same way, since it's truly just milk solids with all of the water and the fat removed. It will just add this incredible rounding of flavor. And when mixed in with the dry ingredients as it hits the sugar and the butters, gives a really great back of the mouth chew. You can put a tablespoon or 2 into any of your favorite go-to cookie recipes, and it will be like you are like walking into the Wizard of Oz, like life and color moment, when it just goes, straight up from black and white to color, and you'll never go back.
Okay.
I know. What a statement, Carrie.
Yeah, that's not a big statement at all. Let's talk to Nan in New York. Hi, Nan. Welcome to All of It.
Hi there. I need to turn off. What do I need to turn off? The radio?
If your radio's on, please turn it down.
Okay, it's actually my phone and my radio are the same
Okay.
thing.
So what's your question?
Anyway, here's my question. So, my grandmother used to make the most wonderful molasses cookies. There was absolutely nothing flashy about them, but they were kind of soft. I mean, really soft, kind of cakey, like when she cooked them in a sheet pan and they all kind of ran in together. And they were so delicious. And I have two cousins who are all in our 70s. And we realized a couple of years ago that we used to think about those cookies all the time. And I'm always looking for, like, I don't know, what would be like them? Like a pumpkin cookie, ginger cookie. What would it be? And I'm always trying to track down that particular flavor. And then last week, after eating two very unsuccessful attempts, I realized maybe there was no spice in them at all. Maybe it was just molasses in this soft, kind of cakey, wonderful cookie. I don't know. Can you help me?
100%. Okay, I'm with you, Nan. So here's, not having tasted the real thing, but hearing your description of them, I would start with something like the chipless Wonder cookie, or just a chocolate chip cookie without the chocolate chips. And then it sounds like the tenets of the cookie are molasses, obviously. So subbing in some white sugar, some of the granulated sugar or light brown sugar from molasses, and then replacing the rest of the sugar with a light brown or a dark brown sugar will give you that really deep molassesy flavor without having to commit to spice. And then what I would also say is if they were almost cakey-like, a standard cookie recipe, a standard chocolate chip cookie recipe is typically 2 sticks of butter to 1 egg. If you add an extra egg into your batter, you will get something that is more hydrated, more fluffy, more rich because of that egg yolk, but something that's a little bit taller, fluffier in the way that you're describing this cookie being almost running into each other, which is almost whoopie pie land. In
Christina,
my mind.
I hate to do this before the end, but we have to break. Christina Tosi, thank you so much for being with us.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, how did the nation of Qatar get to host the World Cup?
I've never seen graft and corruption documented in this kind of detail ever before.
Investigative journalist Heidi Blake on the dirty business at FIFA. That's all on the New Yorker Radio Hour from WNYC Studios. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.